Good evening, my little creatures of the night. Mr. Wendigo back again with your late night creature feature. Before we begin, I'm curious. Where are you listening from tonight? Alone in your room? Driving through empty roads? Drop a comment and let me know. I like knowing who's out there in the dark with me. Now then, let's see what tonight's tale brings us. They won't stop staring. Chapter 1. Good visibility. You don't expect to feel watched in the Badlands. That's the lie people tell themselves. The terrain is open, brutal, stripped down to bone. No trees, no shadows that last longer than they should. You can stand on a ridge and see for miles in every direction. The weather doesn't sneak up on you out here, neither do animals. Which means if something's watching you, it's doing it in plain sight. I transferred to the Park Service 3 years ago. After 12 years as a state game warden, people assumed the move was about slowing down. It wasn't. I needed distance from a shooting that was justified on paper and wrong everywhere else. Wrong house, wrong man, right amount of paperwork to keep my badge. The homeowner's name was Arturo Gonzalez. 2 kids. The warrant was for his neighbor, a poacher running deer out of season. Addresses got mixed up. Happens more than you'd think. Arturo came out his back door at 2 a.m., holding a rifle because he thought someone was breaking in. I fired first. Justifiable. Clean shoot. The review board said so. Arturo's wife standing in the doorway screaming said otherwise. His kids 8 and 5 said it louder. I could still see their faces sometimes. The kids, standing behind their mother in pajamas with cartoon characters on them. The boy had been holding a stuffed dinosaur. The girl had her thumb in her mouth. They'd watched their father bleed out on the back porch while I called it in. 3 months of paid leave, mandatory counseling, cleared for duty. I turned in my game warden badge 6 months later. Being a ranger meant protection, prevention, less final decisions. That's what I told myself. Anyway, the Badlands seemed like a good place to disappear into work that didn't involve pointing guns at people in the dark. The call came in just after sunrise on a Tuesday. Solo hiker, male, early 30s, day pack. Went off trail chasing a photo opportunity near the Notch Trail and didn't come back. His girlfriend called it in when he missed their dinner reservation in Wall. Routine. Preston Landon met me at the trailhead, 40 years old, SAR veteran, the kind of ranger who could read terrain like a second language. He'd been alone his whole life. Not lonely. Alone. There's a difference. Preston was good at his job, honest, showed up on time, but he didn't pretend to give a shit about people beyond professional obligation. Probably twisted an ankle chasing the perfect sunset shot. He loaded his pack. They always do. He wasn't wrong. We pulled 3 or 4 off-trail hikers out of the backcountry every month. Usually dehydrated, sunburned, embarrassed, sometimes injured, rarely dead. Jessica Matsumoto pulled up 10 minutes later. 1 year in, sharp eyes, the kind of optimism that made you wonder how long the job would let her keep it. Her older sister was in South Sudan right now, building wells for villages without clean water. Jessica was in South Dakota looking for Instagram hikers who wandered off marked trails. The comparison wasn't kind, but she made it anyway. Ready? She was already scribbling notes in her field log. Jessica documented everything. Arrival times, weather conditions, equipment checks. She'd shown me her logs once, pristine, color-coded, cross-referenced. Her sister sent home photos of smiling kids drinking clean water for the first time. Jessica sent home incident reports about found hikers and rescued day trippers. She was trying. You could see it in the way she triple-checked her gear, the way she volunteered for every difficult assignment, the way she asked questions that showed she'd been reading the SAR manuals at home. I liked her. Hoped the job wouldn't break that earnestness. Preston was already walking. His girlfriend said he was headed for the overlook past Castle Trail. Wanted golden hour shots for his photography blog. A photography blog? Jessica rolled her eyes. Of course. Hey, at least it's not another proposal. I fell into step beside them. Remember that guy last month who wanted to propose at Saddle Pass and got lost for 6 hours? She said no, didn't she? She said no before they even found him. Preston shook his head, texted her rejection while he was still lost. Jessica laughed. It was a good sound, the kind you didn't hear enough of out here. Poor guy. Lost in the Badlands and dumped in the same day. He posted about it on Reddit. I grinned despite myself. Got 50,000 upvotes. Jesus. Yeah. The wind was already up. Visibility perfect. The sky stretched wide and empty overhead, that particular shade of blue that felt like it went on forever. Good conditions for a search. If our missing hiker was out there, we'd spot him. Preston shouldered his pack. If he's out there, we'll spot him. Jessica nodded, her pen moving across the page. I looked out over the ridges and didn't answer. Something about the light felt wrong. Not the quality, the direction. Shadows were falling at angles that didn't quite match the sun's position. Small discrepancy. The kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't paying attention. I was always paying attention now. We hiked in silence for the first 20 minutes. The Badlands have a rhythm to them, constant wind, the crunch of boots on hard, packed trail, the occasional whistle of air moving through rock formations. No birds this morning. I noticed that. No insects either. Just wind. Jessica broke the silence. How many searches have you done out here? 30, maybe 40. Preston kept scanning the horizon. Most of them end with someone sheepish and sunburned. What about the ones that don't? He didn't answer right away. He was moving his head in that methodical way he had, reading the terrain. Sometimes we find them too late. Exposure, dehydration. Someone falls, breaks something, can't get back. Sometimes we don't find them at all. How often is that? Often enough. Jessica made a note. The statistics seem high for this park. I was reading the incident reports last week. We've had more disappearances in the last 5 years than parks twice our size. Preston glanced at her. You've been reading old reports? I like to be thorough. Find anything interesting. She hesitated. Just patterns, maybe. People who went missing in similar conditions. Good weather, good visibility, experienced hikers who should have known better. People make mistakes. I know, but some of the details were weird. Weird how? Some of the last known sightings. Other hikers reported seeing them standing on ridges, looking at something, just standing there, staring. Then they'd vanish. Preston's jaw tightened, just slightly, but I caught it. Probably just coincidence. We'd been hiking for an hour when Jessica stopped dead. Binoculars. Her voice was tight. Now, I raised mine. At first, it looked like a rock spire, tall, narrow, casting a shadow that fell wrong against the slope behind it. The Badlands were full of formations like that. Hoodoos and pillars carved by wind and water over millions of years. Then I realized the shadow was moving. No, not moving. Shifting, like the thing was breathing. It stood on the ridgeline maybe 300 yards out, easily 10 feet tall, arms too long for the body, proportions wrong in a way that made my eyes hurt trying to process the angles. It wasn't moving, wasn't swaying with the wind, just standing there, watching us. I blinked. It was gone. Not ducked behind cover, not moved to a different position, just gone. The ridge where it had been standing was empty, nothing but rock and sky. Jessica lowered her binoculars slowly. Her hands were shaking. It didn't move. It was just there, and then it wasn't. I scanned the area where it had been. No place to hide. No gullies deep enough. The ridge was bare. Preston didn't joke, didn't dismiss it, didn't tell Jessica she'd been seeing things. He just said, "That's not the first report." Those 5 words changed everything. "What do you mean?" Preston lowered his binoculars. His face had gone hard in a way I hadn't seen before. Over the last 18 months, there have been 7 incident reports filed by rangers and hikers. All of them described the same thing, tall figures standing on ridges, watching. All of them said the figures disappeared when they blinked or looked away. Jessica's voice had an edge to it now. "Why didn't anyone tell us?" "Because it sounds crazy. Because there's no physical evidence. Because every time someone investigated, they found nothing. No tracks, no trace. Just empty ridgelines and people who sounded like they needed psychiatric evaluation." "Do you believe them?" I kept my eyes on the ridge. Preston looked at the spot where the thing had been standing. "I didn't, until 30 seconds ago." We stood there for a long moment. The wind picked up, carrying dust across the basin. I kept scanning the ridgelines. Nothing. Just rock and space and that too blue sky. Jessica found her professional voice. "We should keep looking for the hiker." "Yeah, we should." We found him 20 minutes later. He was arranged in a scraggly juniper tree like a fucked up snowman. His arms had been removed at the shoulders and placed on branches at roughly the right height, left arm pointing west, right arm pointing east. His legs were gone from the hip joints, positioned lower on the trunk, bent at angles that suggested sitting. His head sat at the top, carefully balanced, tilted slightly to one side. The torso hung in the center, suspended somehow. No rope, no visible support, just hanging there. There was no blood. The cuts were clean, surgical, like someone had taken the body apart with precision and care, then reassembled it as something new. The joints where limbs had been severed showed no tearing, no ragged edges, just smooth separations. Jessica made a sound, not quite a scream, not quite a sob, something in between. I stepped closer. The body had been dead for at least 12 hours, rigor mortis had set in, then passed, but there were no signs of predation. No animal had touched it. The exposed flesh showed no feeding marks, no insect activity, nothing. The face still had its eyes. They were open, staring straight ahead at nothing. Or maybe at something we couldn't see. Preston circled the tree slowly, his radio already in his hand. "Base, this is Landon. We've located the missing hiker, requesting immediate backup and a coroner." And he paused. "And maybe law enforcement. This isn't an accident." The radio crackled. "Copy that. What's the situation?" Preston looked at the body, at the careful arrangement, at the impossible precision. "I don't know how to classify this." Jessica had backed away from the tree. She was breathing hard, both hands pressed against her mouth. I walked over and put a hand on her shoulder. "Look away." She did, but I knew she'd already seen enough. You don't unsee something like that. I looked back at the body. The arrangement wasn't random, it was deliberate, intentional, like someone or something had been experimenting, learning, figuring out how human bodies fit together, playing. The word came to me unbidden. They were playing with him. Preston holstered his radio. "We need to set up a perimeter, document the scene, wait for backup. Backup's 3 hours out, minimum. Then we wait 3 hours." Jessica found her voice. It was small and tight. "What did this?" Neither of us answered. Because we'd both seen what was standing on the ridge, and we both knew it was still out there, watching. Chapter 2. The Watching Begins. We documented the scene, took photos from every angle. Jessica's hand shook so badly she had to steady the camera against a rock. Preston measured distances, made notes in his field book. Everything by procedure. But we all kept glancing at the ridges, waiting. "How long until backup?" Jessica asked for the 3rd time. 2 hours and 40 minutes. We should move away from the body. We should stay with it. Chain of evidence. I don't want to stay here. Neither do I. We set up a watch rotation 50 yards from the tree, far enough that we didn't have to look at it constantly, close enough to maintain the perimeter. I took first watch while Preston and Jessica sat in the shade of a rock formation, drinking water and trying to process what we'd seen. The wind had died down, the air was still, hot, the kind of heat that made everything shimmer at the edges. I scanned the ridges systematically, left to right, then back again. Nothing. But I could feel it. That weight of attention, like standing in front of a window and knowing someone's on the other side of the glass. You can't see them, can't hear them, but you know they're there. Watching. I blinked. There were 3 of them now. Different ridges, evenly spaced, all facing our position. My breath caught. I didn't move, didn't call out to Preston and Jessica, just stood there, looking at them through my binoculars. They stood motionless, arms hanging at their sides, that terrible stillness that nothing living should be able to maintain. I forced myself not to blink. My eyes started to water. The urge built like pressure. I counted seconds in my head. 30, 40, 50. I had to blink. I did. They were gone. All 3 of them. The ridges were empty again. "Fuck," I whispered. "Brock?" Jessica called. "You okay?" "Yeah, fine." I wasn't fine. I walked back to where they were sitting, kept my voice low. I saw 3 of them. Preston looked up. "Where?" I pointed to the ridges. There, and there, all watching us. How long? Maybe a minute. Then I blinked and they were gone. Jessica pulled her knees up to her chest. "They're studying us." "What?" "That's what it feels like. They're not hunting. They're watching, learning, like we're specimens in a lab." Preston stood up and scanned the ridges with his binoculars. "I don't see anything. They're there. They're just waiting for us to notice them again." We sat in silence for a while. The heat pressed down. Sweat ran down my back, soaking through my shirt. Jessica stared at nothing. The body, the way it was arranged, that wasn't violence. That was curiosity. They were figuring out how we're put together. How many of them do you think there are? I don't know. But if there are 7 reports over 18 months, and each report mentions seeing figures, could be dozens, could be hundreds. That's not possible. Why not? The Badlands are huge. Thousands of square miles of backcountry. If something lived here, if something had always been here, we might never know. Preston was still scanning the ridges. Movement, northwest ridge, 2 o'clock. I raised my binoculars. One of them stood there, closer than before, maybe 200 yards out. As I watched, it tilted its head. Slow, deliberate, like it was trying to understand the angle, the position. Jessica's voice was barely audible. "It's mimicking us." She was right. The tilt matched the way we'd been holding our heads while looking through binoculars. Not perfect, just learning. I lowered my binoculars. It lowered its head. Jesus Christ. We stayed there for another hour. They appeared and disappeared. Sometimes 1, sometimes 3 or 4. Always watching, always on different ridges. Never the same position twice. The radio crackled. "Stetson, this is base. Backup is delayed. Weather system moving in from the west. Extraction pushed to 0600 tomorrow." Tomorrow? We'd have to spend the night out here. "Copy that. We'll set up at the ranger cabin near Marker 7. "Confirmed. Stay safe." I looked at Preston and Jessica. "We're staying the night." Jessica's face went white. Chapter 3, Night 1. We set up a temporary camp at the old ranger cabin 2 miles from the body. The structure was small, maybe 20 by 20 feet, but it had a solid door and windows facing open ground. Preston insisted we sleep in shifts. Nobody argued. The hike to the cabin had been a nightmare. They'd followed us. Not closely, not threateningly, just present. On ridges to our left, on formations to our right, sometimes ahead of us, standing perfectly still on the trail, then gone when we got close. Jessica had started counting them. 12. I've counted 12 different ones. How do you know they're different? Heights vary. The proportions are slightly different. That one's taller, that one's thinner. They're not all the same. So there's at least 12. At least. The sun went down fast in the Badlands. 1 minute there was light, the next there was darkness so complete it felt like the land had been erased. No moon, no stars visible through the cloud cover that had rolled in. Just black. At night, the Badlands go quiet in a way that feels intentional. No insects, no birds, no animals moving through brush because there is no brush. Just wind dragging across stone and the occasional crack of rock cooling after the day's heat. I was pouring coffee from a thermos when Jessica spoke from the window. "Brock?" Something in her voice made me look up fast. She was staring outside, face drained of color in the lantern light. I stepped beside her. It stood maybe 15 yards from the cabin. Tall, thin. The lantern light didn't reach it, but I could make out the shape too tall, too narrow, arms hanging too low. The face was featureless. Or maybe it just didn't reflect light the way a face should, just a smooth expanse of something that looked like skin stretched too tight. The head tilted slightly, curious. It wasn't crouching, wasn't in any kind of hunting posture, just standing there, watching us through the glass. Preston. I didn't take my eyes off it. He was already moving. His rifle came up smooth and easy. He didn't point it at the thing, just held it ready. I turned my head to say something to him. When I looked back, it was closer, right at the window, close enough that if the glass wasn't there, I could have touched it. The face pressed forward slightly, still featureless, still watching. I blinked. Gone. Not stepped back, not moved away, just absent. The space where it had been standing was empty, no retreat visible, no sound of movement. Just nothing where something had been. Preston's voice was barely a whisper. Fuck. That was the first time I'd heard him sound scared. Jessica had backed away from the window. She was breathing fast, both hands gripping her radio like it was a lifeline. "Did you see?" "Yeah." It moved when I blinked. I know. We stood there in silence. The wind picked up outside, rattling something against the cabin wall. Just wind, probably. Preston lowered his rifle slowly. The reports all mentioned the same thing. The figures move when you blink, or when you look away, but never when you're actually watching them. How is that possible? I don't know. What do they want? I don't know that either. I walked to the door and checked the lock. Solid. The windows had shutters old, but functional. I started closing them. We're locking ourselves in. Yeah, we won't be able to see them. I'd rather not see them right now. Jessica helped me with the shutters. Her hands were still shaking. We got them all closed, secured with the old iron latches. The cabin went darker, just the lantern light now, casting long shadows across the rough wood walls. Preston checked his watch. Backup's not coming until morning. Coroner's delayed, they can't navigate the trails in the dark. So we wait. We ate MREs in silence. Nobody had much appetite, but we needed the calories. SAR work burned energy fast, and we'd been hiking hard all day. Jessica picked at hers, then gave up halfway through. I keep seeing him. Her voice was barely audible. The hiker, She nodded. In the tree, the way his arms were just placed there, like pieces of a puzzle. Don't think about it. How do you not think about it? Preston didn't answer, because there was no answer. You saw something like that. It lived in your head forever. I knew that better than most. I still saw Arturo Gonzalez sometimes, still saw his kids. Around 11 p.m., we started hearing the scratching. It came from the walls, slow, methodical, like fingernails testing the grain of the wood, not random, deliberate. The sound moved from the north wall to the east wall, then around to the south, circling. Jessica grabbed her flashlight. Should we look? No, Preston and I said at the same time. The scratching continued. It had a rhythm to it. 3 scratches, pause, 3 scratches, pause, over and over. Jessica's voice dropped to a whisper. It's trying to get in. The door is solid. So are the walls. You don't know that. She was right. I didn't. The scratching stopped. Silence pressed in, heavy, waiting. Then footsteps on the roof. Not heavy steps. Light. Too light for something that tall. Like it weighed nothing. Or like it was distributing its weight in ways that didn't make sense. The footsteps moved from one end of the roof to the other. Slow, deliberate. Then they stopped, right above where we were sitting. We sat there, barely breathing, listening to the silence. Something tapped on the roof. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps, pause. The same rhythm as the scratching. Jessica grabbed my arm. It's communicating. They're coordinating. How many are there? Nobody answered. Because we didn't know. The tapping stopped. We waited. At midnight, the scratching started again, this time on the door, right at eye level, patient, persistent. What are they? Jessica's voice cracked. I don't know. What do they want? I don't know. Preston stood up and walked to the door, put his ear against the wood, listened. He stepped back fast. What? Breathing. On the other side of the door, I can hear it breathing. We sat there in the lantern light, listening to something breathe on the other side of a wooden door. The breathing had a pattern, in for 3 seconds, out for 3 seconds, regular, mechanical almost. It sounds wrong, Jessica hugged herself. She was right. The breathing didn't sound organic, didn't sound like lungs moving air. More like something that had learned the concept of breathing and was mimicking it. Badly. At 1:47 a.m., the breathing stopped. The scratching stopped. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence. Preston's voice was low. Don't blink. What? Don't blink. Any of us. Keep your eyes open. Preston, just trust me. We sat there in the lantern light, eyes wide, trying not to blink. My eyes started to water. The urge to blink built like pressure behind my face. I could see Jessica struggling with it too. Her eyes were streaming, her jaw clenched. I can't, she started. Something moved inside the cabin. I didn't see it arrive, didn't hear it enter. It was just suddenly there, standing in the corner behind Preston. Tall, thin, that featureless face tilted down, watching him. Preston, I kept my voice steady. He started to turn. The thing didn't move. Jessica screamed. I blinked. I couldn't help it. The scream startled me. Preston was gone. Not grabbed, not pulled away, just gone. His rifle clattered to the floor where he'd been sitting. His pack was still there. His coffee cup was still steaming. But Preston was absent. The thing was gone too. Jessica was hyperventilating. Where did... I don't know. He was right there. I know. I grabbed Preston's rifle, checked the door still locked, checked the window still shuttered. No way in, no way out. But Preston was gone. and I had no idea how. Jessica stood up, backing toward the wall. Her eyes were wild. "We need to get out of here. We need to." "We're not opening that door. Brock, he's gone." "I know." We stood there in the cabin, breathing hard. The lantern flickered. Outside, something moved across the roof. Light footsteps. Patient. Waiting. I thought about the body in the tree, about the careful arrangement, about the precision. They were learning how to take us. We need to stay awake, need to keep watching. Jessica was crying now. I can't not blink. Nobody can not blink. She was right, but we had to try. We lasted until 4:47 a.m. That's when I heard the wet sound outside. Heavy, final. I opened the door. Preston's body was on the ground 20 feet from the cabin. He'd landed face down. His pack was still on his back. His arms were spread wide, fingers dug into the dirt like he tried to grab onto the ground itself. But his back was crushed. Ribs driven inward, spine compressed, organs forced up through the shattered bone, blood spread out in a wide pool, already soaking into the dry earth. I walked closer. Preston's face was turned to the side. His eyes were open. His mouth was open. He'd been screaming when he hit. I looked up. Nothing but darkness and cloud cover. But somewhere up there, something had grabbed him, carried him hundreds of feet into the air, held him for how long? Minutes? Long enough for him to know what was coming, long enough to scream until his voice gave out, then dropped him. I could see the terror still frozen on his face, the split second of free fall, the knowledge that he was about to die and there was nothing he could do about it. The impact had destroyed him. His chest had collapsed, ribs punching through his lungs and into his heart. The liver had ruptured, spilling dark blood into the abdominal cavity. His legs were both broken femurs snapped clean through, bone fragments visible through torn fabric. One of his boots had come off during the fall. It lay 10 feet away, laces still tied. But the worst part was his hands. His fingers were bloody, nails torn down to the quick. He'd clawed at something, maybe the thing that grabbed him, maybe just the air as he fell. The skin on his palms was shredded, like he'd tried to grab onto something smooth and failed, over and over. The desperation in those torn nails said everything. He'd known what was coming, and he'd fought anyway. I stood there looking at Preston's body and felt nothing. Not shock, not grief, just a cold recognition. That was going to be me. That was going to be Jessica. We were going to die out here. I turned back to the cabin. Jessica was standing in the doorway. She'd seen it, seen Preston's crushed body, seen what they'd done to him. Her face had gone white. She looked at me with eyes that had lost that earnest optimism, lost that hope. "We're going to die." Her voice was hollow. "Maybe. They're going to kill us. Probably." She deserved better than that, deserved some kind of reassurance, some plan, some reason to believe we'd make it out. But I had nothing. The sun was starting to rise, gray light bleeding across the horizon. "We need to move. Need to get back to the trailhead. Radio for immediate extraction." Jessica nodded numbly. We left Preston where he fell. Chapter 4. The Learning. The thing about the Badlands is that daylight doesn't change anything. The openness that should make you feel safe just makes you feel exposed. You can see for miles, which means whatever's watching you can see you too. We'd been hiking for maybe 30 minutes when I saw them. 5 of them. They stood along a ridge to our east, evenly spaced, maybe 50 yards between each one. All of them tall, motionless, facing us. I stopped walking. Jessica saw them a second later. She made a small sound, not quite a gasp, just a sharp intake of breath. "How long have they been there?" "I don't know." Her voice dropped. "Brock, I don't think they arrive. I think they're always there. We just start seeing them. That thought hit me wrong. The idea that these things were always present, always watching, just waiting for us to notice them. I raised my rifle. Every instinct I had screamed not to. Shooting at something you didn't understand was a good way to make things worse, but the weight of the rifle felt like the only control I had left. The nearest one tilted its head. Slow, deliberate, curious. Then it raised its arm, mimicking me, mimicking the rifle. I blinked. The ridge was empty. All 5 of them gone. Jesus Christ. Jessica grabbed my arm. We kept walking, faster now. The trail back to the parking area was another 2 miles. 2 miles of open terrain where anything could be watching from any direction. I kept scanning the ridges. Nothing. Just rock and sky and that relentless wind. But I felt them. Watching. Why aren't they chasing us? Jessica's voice was tight. If they want to kill us, why not just... I don't know. They're not hunting, they're just watching. She was right. The things weren't pursuing, weren't closing distance. They appeared, watched, disappeared, over and over, like they were studying us, learning. We made it another half-mile before I saw the footprints. Bare feet, long, too many toes, 6, maybe 7 on each foot. The prints pressed deep into the hard ground, deeper than they should have been for how light those footsteps had sounded on the cabin roof. The prints paralleled the trail for maybe 20 yards, then stopped. No turn away, no change in gait, just ended, like the thing had stepped out of existence. Brock, Jessica pointed ahead. There were more prints, lots more, all around us, circling, crossing. Some of them were old, weathered by wind. Some looked fresh. We'd been surrounded the entire time. We just hadn't noticed. Keep moving. But Jessica had stopped. She was staring at something ahead. What? She pointed. There was another body. Not the hiker. Someone else. A woman, maybe mid-40s. She wore hiking gear, expensive stuff, technical fabric, good boots. She'd been arranged too. Sitting upright against a rock formation, legs crossed, arms positioned at her sides, palms up, like she was meditating, her head tilted back, face to the sky. Her eyes were missing, not gouged out, removed. The sockets were clean, empty. Her mouth was open. Something had been placed inside. I stepped closer, trying to see what it was. Rocks. Small, smooth stones, arranged in her mouth in a careful pattern. Jessica made a sound behind me, retching. Don't look. Too late. She'd already seen. I walked around the body. No blood, no signs of struggle, just careful, deliberate arrangement, like the hiker in the tree, like Preston's crushed form. They were experimenting with us, figuring out what we were, how we worked, what we looked like when we stopped moving. How long has she been here? I don't know. Weeks, maybe. The exposures preserved the body. Who was she? I checked her pack, found a wallet, driver's license. Sarah Chen, age 43, from Denver. When did she go missing? I don't know, but she's not in our current missing persons. So they've been doing this for a while. Yeah. We stood there looking at the body, the careful arrangement, the removed eyes, the stones in her mouth. Jessica's voice was barely audible. They're playing with us, like kids pulling wings off flies. We need to keep moving. What if there are more? Then we'll find them. But we need to get to the trailhead. The radio crackled. I grabbed it fast. Stetson, this is base. Confirm your position. We're en route to the trailhead. ETA 45 minutes. We need immediate extraction. Landon is dead. Repeat, Landon is dead. We have a hostile situation out here. Multiple hostiles. Silence. Then, copy that. What's the nature of the hostility? How the hell was I supposed to explain this? Unknown entities. Multiple. Potentially dangerous. We need backup. Armed backup. And we found another body. Female. ID is Sarah Chen from Denver. Arranged with care, like the hiker. These things are... The radio died. Not lost signal. Died. The screen went dark. I tried powering it back on. Nothing. Jessica's radio was dead too. They're cutting us off. Maybe. Or maybe the batteries. They're cutting us off. She was probably right. We kept walking. The sun was higher now, heat starting to build. I could feel sweat running down my back. My eyes were dry and burning from forcing them to stay open. Every time I blinked, I expected to see one of those things appear. But the ridges stayed empty. Too empty. We walked in silence for another 20 minutes. Then Jessica stopped. "Do you hear that?" I listened. Footsteps. Behind us, ahead of us, to both sides. Light. Patient. Keeping pace with us. I turned. Nothing. Turned back. Still nothing. But the footsteps continued. "They're hurting us." Jessica's voice shook. "They're pushing us somewhere." She was right. Every time we tried to veer off the trail, the footsteps got closer, louder. We'd course correct, and they'd fall back to that patient distance, keeping us moving in a specific direction. Where are they taking us? I didn't answer, because I was starting to understand. They weren't taking us anywhere. They were just watching, learning how we moved, how we reacted, how we tried to escape. We were specimens, and they were studying us. The realization settled cold in my chest. We reached a basin wide, flat, surrounded by ridges on all sides. No cover, no escape routes. Jessica saw at the same time I did. We can't go in there. We don't have a choice. The footsteps behind us were getting closer. I could hear them clearly now, multiple sets, moving in unison, like they were coordinated. We stepped into the basin. They appeared on every ridge. Dozens of them. I'd been wrong. Not dozens. More. They covered every visible surface, standing shoulder to shoulder in some places, evenly spaced in others. All of them tall, motionless, facing us. That collective attention felt like weight pressing down from every direction. Jessica grabbed my arm. "Oh God. Oh God. There's so many." I raised my rifle. Stupid. Pointless. But it was all I had. None of them moved. They just stood there, watching. Jessica's breathing was coming fast and shallow. What do we do? We keep moving. Brock. We keep moving. We walked across the basin. Every step felt like it took an hour. The things on the ridges didn't move, didn't follow, just watched with that terrible, patient attention. My eyes were streaming now. The wind was constant, carrying dust and grit. I had to blink, had to clear my vision. I blinked. They were closer. Not on the ridges anymore. In the basin with us, maybe 50 yards away. Still motionless, still watching. Jessica saw them. She made a sound like a wounded animal. "Don't look at them. Just keep walking." I can't not look at them. Try. We kept walking. I blinked again. They were 30 yards away. Surrounding us now. A circle that was slowly tightening. Brock. I know. They're going to kill us. Maybe. Why won't they stop staring? I didn't have an answer. Jessica's voice broke. "My sister's in South Sudan, saving lives, making a difference, and I'm here, about to die in the fucking Badlands because I wanted to prove I mattered too. You matter. do I? What did I save? Who did I help? Jessica. I should have just gone to medical school. Should have followed her. But I wanted to do something different. Something that was mine. We were maybe 100 yards from the far side of the basin when Jessica tripped. She went down hard, hands out to catch herself, her pack twisted, throwing her off balance. She hit the ground face first, dust billowing up around her. I reached for her. She looked up at me. Her face was covered in dirt and tear tracks. Blood ran from her nose where she'd hit the ground. Her lip was split. "Help me up." I grabbed her hand. Her eyes went wide. She was looking past me, at something behind me. Brock. I turned. One of them stood 5 feet away, close enough to touch. The face leaned down toward me, still featureless, still that terrible smooth expanse like skin stretched over something it was never meant to cover. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It tilted its head, studying me. I could see details now, the texture of the skin not smooth up close, rough, like stone that had been worn by wind and sand for centuries. There were cracks in it, fissures, but nothing beneath. Just more of that same stone-like surface going deeper. It wasn't wearing skin. It was made of it, all the way through. I blinked. I couldn't help it. My eyes were so dry. It was touching Jessica. One hand on her shoulder. Long fingers, too many joints, each joint bending in directions that made my eyes hurt to track. Jessica looked at me. Her eyes were wide with terror, tears cutting tracks through the dust on her face. She opened her mouth to scream, but nothing came out, just a small, broken sound. The thing's fingers tightened. Not violently, just firmly, like it was testing the resistance, learning how much pressure human skin could take before it gave way. Jessica tried to pull away. The thing's grip held. She pulled harder. The fingers didn't budge. "Brock, please." I lunged for her. My hands closed on her arm. I felt her. Solid. Real. Her skin was cold despite the heat. I could feel her pulse racing under my fingers. I pulled. The thing didn't resist. Didn't fight. Just held on with that same steady pressure. We were locked there. Me pulling. It holding. Jessica between us. Let her go. The thing tilted its head the other way. Curious. I blinked. My hands closed on air. She was gone. Not pulled away. Not dragged. Just absent. Her pack was still on the ground. Her flashlight had rolled free. Lens cracked. Her field notebook lay open. Pages fluttering in the wind. I could see her handwriting. Neat. Precise. The last entry read, 11:47 a.m., proceeding to extraction point. Weather clear. Visibility. She hadn't finished the sentence. I spun around. Nothing. Empty basin. The things on the ridges were gone too. I was alone. "Jessica." My voice echoed across the basin and died. Silence. I stood there holding my rifle, breathing hard, trying to understand what had just happened. She'd been right there. Right there. And now she was gone. I thought about her sister in South Sudan, building wells, saving lives, making a real difference. Jessica had just wanted to help people. She'd wanted to matter. And now she was gone. I picked up her field notebook. The pages were warm from the sun. I could smell her some kind of vanilla body spray she wore. The scent was fading fast in the wind. I closed the notebook and put it in my pack. Then I started walking. Chapter 5. Alone. I don't remember much about the next few hours. I walked. I think I was heading for the trailhead, but I'm not sure. The terrain all looked the same, rock and dust and that endless sky. I saw them sometimes, on ridges, in valleys, always watching. I stopped trying to track them, stopped trying to understand. I just walked. They'd appear ahead of me. I'd change direction. They'd appear there too, like they were guiding me, pushing me towards something, or away from something. I didn't care anymore. The sun was directly overhead when I found the third body. A man, young, maybe 25, athletic build. He'd been arranged standing up, propped against a rock spire, arms raised above his head like he was reaching for something, legs positioned in mid-stride like he'd been running. His face was intact, eyes open, mouth open in a silent scream. But his chest had been opened, ribs spread wide like a book. The organs were still inside, but they'd been rearranged, repositioned. The heart sat where the liver should be. The lungs were lower than they should be. Everything moved around like pieces in a puzzle. They were still learning, still figuring out how we worked. I stood there, looking at the body and felt nothing. Another specimen, another experiment. I kept walking. The sun moved across the sky. The heat built. I finished my water around 3 p.m. Didn't matter. I probably wouldn't live long enough to die of dehydration. They kept appearing, disappearing, always watching. I started talking to them. What are you? What do you want? No answer. Why are you doing this? Silence. Just kill me already. Nothing. They just stood there, watching, learning. I laughed. The sound echoed across the empty landscape and died. You don't want to kill me, do you? You're just curious. Just trying to understand. The nearest one tilted its head. Well, here I am. A human. Homo sapiens. Bipedal primate. Warm-blooded. We breathe air. We bleed red. We die when you break us. Congratulations. You figured it out. It didn't move. What else do you want to know? How we think. How we feel. I can tell you. We're scared. We're confused. We don't understand you any more than you understand us. And we die. We all die. Some of us die in hospital beds. Some die in car crashes. And some die in the Badlands, ripped apart by things that shouldn't exist. I was shouting now, my voice cracking. Is that what you wanted to know? Is that helpful? Are you learning? The thing stood there, watching. I sat down hard. My legs had given out. I sat in the dirt and laughed until the laughter turned into something else. Something raw and broken. The sun went down. I found a ravine narrow, deep, with an overhang that created a small, sheltered space. I wedged myself into it, back against stone, rifle across my lap. I wasn't going to sleep. Couldn't sleep. If I closed my eyes, I'd disappear like Preston and Jessica. So I sat there in the dark, clawing at my arms every time I felt my eyelids getting heavy. The pain helped, kept me present, kept me awake. My nails dug into my forearms, breaking skin. Blood ran warm down to my wrists. I dragged my nails deeper. The pain was sharp, clean, real. I could see the white of tendon in some of the cuts. Didn't matter. I kept going. Pain was better than absence. I could feel them out there, watching, waiting. The stars came out, thousands of them. The Badlands at night were beautiful in a way that felt cruel. All that light and emptiness. At some point, I started laughing again. Not humor, just the sound of something breaking. I thought about Arturo Gonzalez, about his kids, about the way the review board had cleared me. Justified shoot. Clean. Nothing to feel bad about. But I'd felt bad anyway. Carried it with me. Let it push me out of a job I was good at and into this one. And for what? Preston was dead, dropped from the sky like trash. Jessica was gone, taken between one blink and the next. I was probably dead too, just hadn't finished the process yet. The laughter turned into something else, something raw and ugly, sobs that tore out of my chest. I sat there in the ravine and let it out. When I was done, I felt hollow, empty. I stared at the opposite wall of the ravine. My eyes burned. Tears had dried on my face, leaving salt tracks. I didn't blink. Couldn't. If I blinked, I was gone. So I stared and stared and stared. My vision started to blur. The edges went soft. I couldn't tell if I was seeing things or if my eyes were just failing. Shapes moved in my peripheral vision. I didn't look at them, didn't acknowledge them, just kept staring straight ahead. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had stopped making sense. At dawn, I saw one of them. It stood across from me, maybe 10 feet away, close enough to see the texture of its skin like stone stretched over something that had no right to wear it. I didn't blink. My eyes burned. Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't blink. We stayed like that for a long time, just watching each other. Then it leaned forward. Slow, deliberate. That featureless face came closer. I could smell it. Dry earth and something else. Something old, like rock that had been buried for 1,000 years and just now exposed to air. It leaned so close I could have touched it. Then it did something I didn't expect. It reached out. One long-fingered hand, moving slowly, carefully. It touched my face. The finger traced down my cheek, following the path of a tear, learning, understanding. Then it stepped backward, not away from me, into nothing. It moved backward through the air, through the space where nothing should be, and disappeared, like it had stepped through a door I couldn't see. That's when I understood. They weren't hunting. They weren't killing for food or territory or any reason I could comprehend. They were learning how we disappear, studying the mechanism, the process, the exact moment when something stops being there. We blink. We look away. We cease to pay attention. And in that moment, in that tiny gap between seeing and not seeing, they take us. Not violently, not with malice, just with curiosity. We're not prey, we're experiments. And they were learning that we feel things, that we cry, that we break. They were learning what it means to be human by taking us apart piece by piece. I sat there in the ravine as the sun rose and felt something inside me go quiet. The fear was gone. The hope was gone. There was just acceptance. I was going to die out here. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, but I was going to die, and there was nothing I could do about it. Chapter 6. Found. They found me 3 days later. A full SAR team with medical support. They said I was in a ravine 5 miles from where Jessica disappeared, dehydrated, severe exposure, cuts and scratches all down my arms where I'd clawed myself to stay awake. My eyes were damaged. Blood vessels burst from holding them open too long. The doctors said I was lucky I didn't go blind. I didn't feel lucky. They asked me what happened. I told them. They wrote it down, put it in a report, filed it under exposure-induced delusion. Preston Landon, missing, presumed deceased. Jessica Matsumoto, missing, presumed deceased. Ranger Brock Stetson, found alive, severe trauma, recommended psychiatric evaluation. I spent 2 weeks in a hospital, another month in mandatory counseling. The counselor was kind, patient. She let me talk about what I'd seen, nodded in all the right places, prescribed medication for the hallucinations. I didn't take it, because they weren't hallucinations. I told them about the bodies, about Sarah Chen, about the young man with his chest rearranged, about the hiker in the tree. They searched, found the hiker, found Sarah Chen, classified both as animal attacks, mountain lion, probably, maybe a bear, even though bears were rare in the Badlands. Never mind that the cuts were too clean, never mind the arrangements. Animal attacks. Case closed. The young man's body was never found. I requested reassignment, somewhere far from the Badlands, anywhere else. Denied. The Badlands still need watching, they said, and now I know what's watching back. Sometimes I see them, on ridges, in valleys, standing just at the edge of my vision. Sometimes I see Preston, standing motionless on a ridge at sunset, watching me with that same terrible patience. Sometimes I see Jessica, her face tilted slightly, curious. She's always on the eastern ridges, always in the morning light. I don't know if they're real. I don't know if the things took them and made them into something else, or if my mind is just broken. Maybe both. I don't blink any more than I have to. I keep my eyes open. I keep watching. Because the moment I stop, the moment I look away, I'll disappear too. And I think they're waiting for that. Patient, curious, learning. Every day I go out on patrol. Every day I help lost hikers find their way back. Every day I file reports and maintain trails and do my job. And every day I see them. More and more. They're not hiding anymore. Or maybe I'm just better at seeing them now. Last week, a group of college students reported seeing figures on the ridges, tall, watching. I told them it was probably rock formations, tricks of the light. They believed me. I filed no report. What would I say? Yesterday, I found another body, arranged sitting at a picnic table, hands folded, head bowed, like it was praying. I called it in as a suicide. Nobody questioned it. I'm keeping count now. In Jessica's field notebook, the one I took from the basin. 17 bodies in 3 years. All arranged, all carefully positioned, all experiments. They're accelerating, learning faster. Soon, they won't need to hide. Soon, they'll understand us completely. And then, I don't know what happens then. I requested another reassignment last week. Denied. The Badlands still need watching. I'm watching, but I'm not the only one. Folklore note. The Lakota and other Plains tribes have stories about the Badlands that predate European contact by thousands of years. They called this place Makosika Land Bad, not because it was evil, but because it was other, a place where the rules were different. The old stories speak of watchers, tall figures made of stone and wind who stood on the ridges before humans arrived. The watchers didn't hunt, didn't threaten. They simply observed, learning the patterns of everything that moved through their territory. The elders taught that you never look directly at a watcher, you never acknowledge them, and you never, ever blink while one is near because the watchers move in the spaces between moments. In the gaps where attention falters. French trappers in the 1800s reported similar encounters, tall shapes on the ridgelines, figures that vanished when approached. The trappers called them les gardiens, the guardians, and refused to camp in certain valleys, no matter how good the water or shelter. The Badlands have always had a higher disappearance rate than comparable terrain. The Park Service attributes this to the extreme conditions, the sudden storms, the disorienting landscape. But the old-timers know better. They know the watchers are still there, patient as stone, curious about the creatures that wander through their domain. And they know that some of those who disappear don't die. They become part of the watching. If you ever find yourself in the Badlands and you feel eyes on you from every direction, don't panic, don't run, and whatever you do, don't blink more than you have to. because the Watchers are always learning, and they're very, very patient. Well, boys and ghouls, that wraps up another terrorific tale from the vault. Oh, poor Brock. Thoughts and prayers. Kidding. Thought he could outrun the Watchers by keeping his eyes open. Thought he could save Preston and Jessica by just not blinking. But some things move in the spaces between heartbeats and the Badlands. They've been watching a lot longer than any ranger's been standing guard, and now he counts bodies in Jessica's notebook while the things on the ridges learn faster every day. Just how we love it. If this story crawled under your skin the right way, hit that subscribe button. New creature features drop every day at 8 p.m. Central, and trust me, tomorrow's even nastier. Leave a like if you'll be checking your rearview mirror for tall figures standing perfectly still, and drop a comment. Where are you watching from? What would you do if you saw something on a ridge that disappeared when you blinked? I'm always hunting for the next nightmare. Remember, the Badlands aren't empty. They're full of things that have been there longer than we have. Things that watch, things that learn, and things that take people apart just to see how they fit together. Until next time, kiddies, keep your eyes open and your blinks to a minimum. This has been your late night creature feature. I'm Mr. Wendigo, and the ridges are always watching.